After this epic wipe, we can start talking about assassins. Welcome back, folks. This is a Guild Wars 1 ESA guide, and if you've been following the series, you know how it goes. First we talk about general infos, then strengths and weaknesses, secondary professions, tips and tricks, meta, anniversary and fun builds, solo farms, and speed clear stuff. So plenty of topics, let's get started. Assassin is a factions only class, meaning you can start a new assign prophecies, and in Nightfall, only in Kanta, they have 4 attributes. The primary is called critical strikes. This is the most important of all because it gives them extra damage and energy each time they land a critical hit. By the way, a critical strike does a bunch of things. There is a visual side, like a small explosion, there is a sound effect, and if you get a critical hit, it also negates 20 points of armor rating and lets the character's weapon deal maximum damage. So this is very important for assassins. The next attribute is called dagger mastery, the bread and butter of almost every meta assassin build. Obviously, the more points you put on this one, the more deadly the dagger becomes. You need 3 different skills to execute the perfect dagger chain. First we need a lead attack, then an offhand attack, and finally a dual attack. The latter, the dual attacks, always hit the enemy twice. If you want more details, a dual attack is actually a double strike. Let's go into details a bit here. So what's a double strike? You can test it yourself, use the dagger and just hit the master of damage or something. There is a small chance, 2%, that one of your attacks hits the target twice in a row. This is a dagger only feature, and only if you have a high dagger mastery you can perform this more and more often, because you get 2% with each rank. Though you can only benefit from this with auto attacks and not with skills, but still it makes dagger usage somewhat unique. Third attribute is deadly arts. This one has a good bunch of hexes, conditions and negative stuff just to torture your enemies even more. The fourth and last attribute is shadow arts, probably the most frequently used one in speed clears. You can say this activates kind of like a god mode for assassins. Of course they can still die, but this section is quite overpowered because skills of this family can prevent enemy spells. Just think of shadow form for instance, or they can block attacks, regen HP, teleport to foes and away from foes, heal child. So very fun group of skills indeed. Generally speaking, assassin armor is a midway of coaster and heavy armor. They can survive in melee range, but obviously have less armor than a warrior for instance. HP is quite the usual 450-500 range. Energy is lower than the coaster's energy, but usually if they run energy heavy skills, critical strikes provide more than enough battery for them. Plus, if you run zealous daggers, which is a must-have I believe, then you get even more energy. A defensive dagger with zealous mod is a good choice. Maybe sometimes you can prefer a 20% enchant mode. And let's not forget the shield set either. Maybe a high energy staff for farming purposes, and that's all an average assassin needs. The DPS is one if not the best in the whole game, especially on a single target. You see at the meta some builds can do over 200 damage per sec and kill a target in less than 2 seconds. Their energy management is great because of critical strikes, and this also allows ESA to use weapons from other classes, like you can run a hammer build, a bow build, side build and so on. I cover more this in the build section. They can also tank and solo farm efficiently using shadow form or dagger skills. They can knock down, blind enemies, remove stances, interrupt foes and teleport out of danger if needed. And also they are very beginner friendly, their meta builds are very easy to use. They don't have many weaknesses, but the general anti-melee stuff hurts them, like ineptitude, clumsiness, visage skills, blind skills, blocking skills. Like I said, their armor is only 70 by default, which is not bad, but not that high either for a frontline profession. And obviously they suck at healing, and their meta build, the typical dagger spam, is a bit boring after a while. Probably their most often used secondary is warrior. This is a good way to spam save yourselves, which provides an extra 100 armor for the whole party. Warrior is also good for trying out other weapons, since assassins can use hammer, sword, bow and axe builds too. You can use a derf secondary and rely on sight mastery skills too. Sadly the crit chance on sights was nerfed like a decade ago. They used to hit like a truck, but still a fun alternative and decent damage. For tanking or solo farming purposes, Elementalist or Mesmer are good choices. Think of Sliver Armor to kill a boss, or Armor of Earth, Stoneflesh Aura, Wastrel's Demise, Channeling or even Mantra skills. About tips and tricks, the general melee stuff comes to mind. Strength of Honor, Splinter Weapon, or Grey Dwarf Weapon, even Judge's Inside. These all increase the asset DPS by a lot and are all highly recommended. Assurance can might be useful if you face blocking or blinding foes, or even Wide Strike to remove enemy stances. One of the best Asa only skill is Critical Agility, a Sun Spear title skill. It gives plus 25 armor, 33% faster attacking speed and renewal on critical hits. OP stuff, 99% of the time I put this into my Asa builds. Since assassins don't really use out adrenaline, save yourselves is easy to spam, they can build the necessary adrenaline faster than other classes. Like I said, the base 70 armor rating is not bad, but in my opinion melees benefit much from I am unstoppable too. Extra 24 armor and no knockdown or clipped for 20 seconds, very useful skill. As a frontline char, critical defense is advised, especially if you don't have an ST in your group. Another tip, another title skill, I am the strongest, it's an underrated skill emo, but the extra 160 damage is nice and you can reuse it between groups. Zealous daggers are another tip which helps dealing with the energy heavy skills. For runes, +1 +3 headpiece is good. For insignias, either blessed for +10 armor rating while enchanted, or Night Stalker insignias. The latter gives +15 while attacking, and trust me, as an Asa you'll be attacking quite many times, but both of these work well. And last but not least, try to be as quick as possible. This class is the fastest attacking of all, you can spam skills much faster than other professions. Always start with a lead attack, then offhand attack and dual attack, then repeat. Once the enemy is dead, move to the next target and try to focus on bold up groups to maximize your DPS. Now get ready for an enormous amount of builds. If I would like to be simple, I would say you can beat the whole game with only 3 skills and some backup. These are Jack Strike, Fox Fangs and Death Blossom. This dagger chain is by far the most frequently used one in the community, and for a good reason. These have very low activation times, low recharge and destroy foes easily. Add Way of the Assassin for an increased crit chance, so energy won't be a problem, and spam spam spam. Okay, I admit this can get quite boring after a while, but it's so effective in PvE that it hurts to use anything else really. You can add Save Yourselves for party support, Crit Agility for extra attacking speed and anything else you find useful. For a long time I believe this was the meta, then the new anniversary elites came and now I think Shadow Theft is a better choice than Vota. Why? Simply because you get a more buffed version of your Sin. The extra 4 or even 5 attribute is very comfy and lets you maximize dagger mastery and deal more damage. Plus, let's not forget that you lower your enemy's attribute meanwhile and you can instantly teleport to your target. Shadow Theft is a true meta skill, highly recommended. The next build is a classic Assassin's Promise bar. You move like a dwarf, Ebon Vanguard as a support, finish him and some additional skills to hurt foes badly. Let me say, I haven't tried this before making this build, but it definitely works and has potential. However, I prefer my Asa to be in melee range and smash like crazy. The next build is very similar to the Derf's Vow of Strength build, but here critical strikes and Way of the Master provides the necessary energy. Not as strong as the Derf's version, since Earth Prayers is on an over rank, but a decent one to spike down big groups, and try to use Sand Charged in advance and lower foes armor with Staggering Force, Eremite's attack combo. The next build is a Shadow Theft Sight Mastery hybrid. Way of the Master helps with the critical hits, Chilling Victory and other skills deal decent damage. With the elite you can reach 16 or 17 Sight Mastery, not bad for a primary Asa. The next two builds rely on hammers. I have to say it's very fun to smash foes with a hammer. Somehow a giant hammer on tiny Asa feels just right. Earthshaker is our elite skill in the first one, and as long as For Great Justice is on, this is a super build and allows continuous knockdown and great damage. The other build relies on Shadow Theft instead, so this one has a higher hammer mastery. Yeti Smash requires a condition, so make sure you add a skill or two for your heroes, or let your group know that you need some. Renewing Smash here too, one of my favorite warrior skills, it deals huge damage if used properly. The next build has bow skills. You can use the new anniversary bow, but regular one will do just as fine since the Q9 marksmanship is met. This build is a bit energy heavy, definitely play it with the Zealous bow and try to use Way of the Master when you are under the effects of the elite, so your crit chances are somewhat better. Another Shadow Theft build, Swordmanship and critical strikes work nicely together. Great damage, plus you can wield a shield for some extra armor. However, neither strength nor tactics here, but an extra 8 armor at least. So the last 4 or 5 builds all used out the way of the master shadow theft abilities, high crit chance, energy gains, and this allows frequent skill usage. But now let me show you some even more fun stuff. These are mostly PvP builds, but you can try them in PvE too. Both focus on knocking down a single target. The first one has Wastrel's Collapse, which does a knockdown when used. You can use this build like 6 different times, depending on what you need, a very complex one indeed. You can start with a knockdown and use skills 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in this order. You can start with 2, 3, 4 and do the knockdown when a fool is activating a key skill. And there are other ways of playing it. So it has 2 knockdowns, deep wound and extra damage from Conjure Lightning, but don't forget the lightning mode on your dagger. The next one is maybe even more entertaining because you got to change weapons in the middle of the fight. Build up adrenaline and start with a hammer, use hammer bash, then quickly change to daggers and use falling spider followed by horns of the ox, falling lotus strike and twisting fangs. This means 2 knockdowns, poison and deep wound on your target, and this can take out unprepared healers very easily. Once the dagger chain is done, use flourish and all your skills are ready to use again. A bit difficult to use at first, but provides new interesting gameplay. When it comes to solo farms, Asa is one of the best choices. I don't want to make this vid way too long, so here is 5 places I recommend. First on the list is the Celestial farm using Flashing Blades and Vigorous Spirit. The farm starts in halfway quarter and you can do it in normal mode and hard mode too. Not just Celestials but feathers are also dropped here. Beautiful scenery and great drops, perfect Q-Nice Cele weapons are always welcomed. The next one is an Underworld farm, or Acto farm in other words. In order to maintain Shadow form we must use an Essence of Celerity since Deadly Paradox limits attacking skill usage. But don't worry, the Essence is only a tiny investment, Actos bring a lot more cash than that. Always use Signet of Mystic Speed before using Shroud or Shadow form because you know the Mind Blades might interrupt with Lead Signet that can hit through Shadow form. Grand Sora takes care of HP loss, Crippling Victory and Reap Imparities do big damage packets and your all weaklings reduce damage by 66%. You can clear the whole Chaos Plains area with this build and farm even Skeletons of Doom. The next farm is Winds of Change, Ministerial Commendation Gold Item farm. In short, beat the first 17 quests of the extension, then stop at a quest called the Chance Encounter, kill the first group, run to the glitch point, wait till all fools get there and spike. Easy to use build, highly recommended especially during favor. Our next place is the classic weight tier farm. I think Asa is the best choice if you wanna farm event items at weight tiers. Dev may do this faster, but in my opinion if you wanna farm long term then an easy to use beginner friendly build like this one is better. Maintain Shadow form and the other enchantments, and then Bola Fools and Spike with Wastrels and the copied version. You can even do a 60 pull, that's easy as well. The last farm is the Feather farm on Factions Noob Island. It works both in normal and hard mode, however the builds are completely different. For normal mode many builds work, maybe best if you rely on sight mastery skills. You know, low level fools, you can even aggro multiple groups, plenty of feathers and scalps, runes and bones. For hard mode Shadow form is a must have and as much self defense and healing stuff as possible. Experienced players may aggro 2 or 3 groups at a time, but the Necro stat skill will hit through and hurt badly in big numbers. You got to use Grand Sora as often as possible and lower Foo's HP with Radiation Field. And let's not forget, Asa can kill a lot of creatures or bosses with Sliver Armor and Shadow form. If the damage would be too much, they can use Armor of Earth or Stoneflesh Aura or even Dark Escape to further increase their survivability, so plenty of other farms to try. Assassins are a typical speed clear profession. Back in the days it was almost only Shadow form scenes, but there are new metas these days and some roles work better as a primary ranger or other charts, but Asa is still a top spot in many endgame areas. For example, Domain of Anguish groups have 2 assassins, a main tank and a trench tank. As far as I know, the MT or main tank is responsible for most of the large balls in DOA and most of the times he's bonded by the ammo. In Fissure of Urus are somewhat similar to DOA. There is a main tank and a T2. The MT's job is to bow groups for the VOS derfs and the T2 Asa can solo certain parts of the area. I believe in Underworld speed clears, Rangers took the Assassin's roles with Whirling Defense. However, in other speed clears like in dungeons, in Orgos, in Deep, Assassins are still very frequently used. So guys, Assassin is a good choice for those who want to return to Guild Wars 1 after a long hiatus, since their meta builds are all very beginner friendly, easy to use and help to beat all content with no sweat. They are also great for soloing content, doing speed clears like DOA, dungeons, or simply running. And this was my ESA guide, hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna focus on this series now. I wanna finish it in the next few weeks, so stay tuned because Ritu, Para and Dervish guys are on their way.